Volume and vision. Have you ever reached the end of a busy day and wondered, I worked all day, so why do I still feel like I accomplished nothing that truly mattered? Maybe your to-do list is finally complete. Every email has been answered. Every notification has been cleared. Every deadline has been met. Yet, when you finally lie down to sleep, something feels strangely empty. It's as if your entire day disappeared into a black hole of endless tasks, leaving behind only exhaustion. Now imagine living like that for years. One day turns into 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 month. Before you realize it, another year has quietly slipped away. You were always busy, always moving, always chasing the next urgent thing, but somehow the life you truly wanted kept waiting for someday. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're incredibly busy doing things that don't really matter. Think about that for a moment. Our generation has more productivity apps, calendars, reminders, AI assistants, and planning systems than any generation in history. We can organize every minute of our lives with incredible precision. Yet stress continues to rise. Burnout is becoming normal. Relationships are becoming weaker. Anxiety is everywhere. How is that possible? Because being efficient is not the same as living wisely. Imagine climbing a mountain with incredible speed. You're stronger than everyone else. You never stop to rest. You reach the summit before anyone. But then you discover something shocking. You've climbed the wrong mountain. All your effort was real. All your discipline was real. All your sacrifices were real. But they were directed towards something that never truly mattered to you. That is one of the biggest tragedies a person can experience. The greatest danger isn't wasting an afternoon. It's wasting decades. Today's book isn't about working harder. It isn't about becoming a machine. It isn't another collection of productivity hacks designed to squeeze 5 more tasks into your schedule. Instead, it asks one simple question that has the power to change everything. What should come first? Because once you answer that question honestly, almost every decision in your life becomes easier. Welcome to Volume and Vision, the place where timeless books become practical ideas that can genuinely improve your life. If you're someone who constantly feels overwhelmed, if your calendar controls you instead of the other way around, or if you've ever felt successful on paper but unfulfilled inside, then stay with me. This conversation might completely change the way you think about time. Not because you'll suddenly have more hours, but because you'll finally understand what those hours are actually for. Most of us grow up believing that time is our most valuable resource. But that's only half the truth. Time is equal for everyone. Every billionaire, every athlete, every scientist, every artist, every student, every parent, every one of us receives the exact same 24 hours every single day. The real difference isn't time. The real difference is what we choose to give our attention to. Attention is where life happens. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is constantly pulled toward emergencies, distractions, endless scrolling, and pleasing everyone around you, your life slowly becomes a reflection of those things. But if your attention is directed toward your deepest values, meaningful relationships, personal growth, and purposeful work, your life begins to take on an entirely different shape. The surprising part is that both people may be equally busy. One feels trapped, the other feels fulfilled. So the question isn't, how do I manage my time? The better question is, how do I manage my priorities? There's an old story about a man who spent years building a magnificent house. He chose the finest materials. He hired the best workers. Every brick was perfectly placed. When the house was finally complete, everyone admired it. But only one person knew the painful truth. The man who built it never actually wanted to live there. He had built someone else's dream. Many people unknowingly do the same thing with their lives. They study subjects they never loved because someone expected it. They pursue careers only for status. They collect possessions they don't even enjoy. They compare themselves to people they don't even admire. Slowly, they become experts at achieving goals that were never truly theirs. This happens because society constantly tells us what success should look like. Earn more, own more, work more, stay busy, be available all the time, never slow down. And after years of following these invisible rules, people wake up one morning wondering why success feels so empty. The problem isn't success itself. The problem is chasing someone else's definition of it. Real fulfillment begins with a different question. What kind of person do I actually want to become? Notice that's very different from asking, what do I want to own? Because possessions eventually lose their excitement. Achievements eventually become normal. Even the biggest victories fade into memories. But the person you become stays with you every single day. Imagine two friends beginning their careers together. The first measures success entirely by salary. Every decision is based on earning more money. The second also wants financial security, but he asks himself another question before accepting any opportunity. Will this help me become the kind of person I want to be? 10 years later, both might have impressive careers. But their lives can look completely different. One may have wealth but constant regret. The other may have both success and peace because every important decision was connected to values rather than temporary rewards. That's the difference between living by pressure and living by purpose. Purpose acts like a compass. Pressure acts like a stopwatch. A stopwatch only tells you how fast you're moving. A compass tells you whether you're moving in the right direction. And here's something fascinating. Life constantly rewards speed. Schools reward finishing first. Companies reward quick results. Social media rewards constant activity. But life rarely rewards direction by accident. Direction requires intention. It requires stopping long enough to ask uncomfortable questions. What truly matters to me? Who matters most? What would I regret losing? If my life continued exactly as it is today for the next 10 years, would I actually be happy with where it leads? Most people avoid these questions because they don't have immediate answers. It's easier to stay busy than to become honest. Busyness can hide confusion. Noise can hide emptiness. Constant movement can hide the fact that we've stopped growing. But silence has an interesting habit. When everything becomes quiet, we finally hear the questions we've been avoiding for years. That's why many people feel uncomfortable doing absolutely nothing. The silence forces them to meet themselves. Yet that very silence is where clarity begins. Because meaningful lives aren't built by accident. They're built one intentional choice at a time. Every morning you wake up with hundreds of decisions waiting for you. Some appear urgent, some appear exciting, some seem impossible to ignore. But beneath all of them lies a deeper choice. Will today bring you closer to the life you truly want? Or simply keep you busy enough to forget that question? The answer doesn't depend on luck. It doesn't depend on intelligence. It doesn't even depend on talent. It depends on whether you have the courage to place the right things first, even when the world keeps shouting that everything else is more important. And that single decision changes everything. The strange thing about priorities is that they don't disappear when we ignore them. They simply wait. Your health waits until your body finally forces you to pay attention. Your relationships wait until someone you love quietly begins to drift away. Your dreams wait until one day you convince yourself you're too old to chase them. Life is incredibly patient, but it isn't endless. Every choice we make is like casting a vote for the kind of future we're creating. One choice may seem insignificant. Skipping one workout doesn't ruin your health. Missing one dinner with your family doesn't destroy a relationship. Reading one less page doesn't erase your knowledge. But life is never changed by one decision. It is shaped by patterns. Small actions, repeated consistently, become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. That's why the most important choices are rarely dramatic. They're usually quiet, ordinary, almost invisible. Choosing to listen instead of checking your phone while someone speaks. Choosing to exercise even when nobody is watching. Choosing to read for 30 minutes instead of scrolling endlessly. Choosing to forgive instead of carrying resentment. These moments don't look extraordinary. But together, they quietly build an extraordinary life. Unfortunately, our brains are naturally attracted to urgency. Think about what happens when your phone vibrates. Even if you're having a meaningful conversation, there's a powerful temptation to look. Why? Because urgency creates the illusion of importance. Our minds are wired to react to immediate signals. A notification, a ringing phone, an email marked urgent, a breaking news alert, they all demand attention right now. But here's the trap. The loudest things in life are rarely the most valuable. A crying child needs attention immediately. A loving conversation with that same child shapes who they become. One is urgent, the other is important. Paying a hospital bill is urgent. Taking care of your health before you is important. Meeting tomorrow's deadline is urgent. Building the skills that will transform your career over the next decade is important. Answering messages instantly feels productive. Spending uninterrupted time thinking deeply about your future feels slow. Yet one creates motion, the other creates progress. There is a massive difference between movement and progress. Imagine sitting in a rocking chair. You can move for hours. You can even become exhausted. But you'll never arrive anywhere. Many people spend years living inside an invisible rocking chair. They're always active, always responding, always solving the next small crisis. Yet every December they ask themselves the same painful question. What actually changed this year? The answer often surprises them. Very little, because constant urgency leaves almost no room for intentional growth. Picture a gardener who spends every day pulling weeds but never plants seeds. His garden always looks busy. Every morning there are new weeds to remove. Every afternoon there are more. He's working hard, but months later, his garden is still empty. Why? Because removing problems is not the same as creating something meaningful. Many of us manage our lives exactly like that gardener. We spend all day solving small problems, replying, fixing, reacting, rushing, apologizing, rescheduling, recovering, but we rarely spend enough time creating stronger friendships, creating healthier habits, creating meaningful work, creating a peaceful mind. Creation almost never feels urgent. Yet it determines the quality of our future. One of the greatest misunderstandings about success is believing that saying yes creates more opportunities. In reality, every yes is also a no. When you say yes to unnecessary meetings, you're saying no to focused work. When you say yes to endless entertainment, you're saying no to learning. When you say yes to pleasing everyone, you're often saying no to yourself. Time is limited, attention is limited, energy is limited. That means priorities aren't simply about deciding what to do. They're about deciding what you're willing to leave undone. This is uncomfortable because most people want to keep every door open. They want every opportunity, every invitation, every possibility. But successful people understand something different. Every meaningful commitment requires sacrifice. A musician sacrifices free evenings to practice. An athlete sacrifices comfort to train. A writer sacrifices distraction to create. A loving parent sacrifices convenience for family. Great lives are built on intentional trade-offs. The question isn't whether you'll sacrifice. The question is whether you'll choose your sacrifices, or allow circumstances to choose them for you. Imagine carrying a backpack. At first, someone asks you to carry a single stone. It doesn't feel heavy. Later, another stone is added. Then another. Then another. Each individual stone seems manageable. But eventually the backpack becomes almost impossible to carry. That's exactly how unnecessary commitments enter our lives. One extra responsibility, one more promise, one additional project, one more social obligation. None of them seem overwhelming on their own. Yet together they quietly steal our peace. Many people don't need more motivation. They need fewer unnecessary burdens. Sometimes growth isn't about adding something new. Sometimes it's about removing everything that no longer belongs. Nature understands this perfectly. Every autumn, trees willingly let go of thousands of leaves. Imagine if they refused. Imagine if every tree desperately tried to keep every leaf forever. Eventually, the weight would become unbearable. Letting go isn't weakness. It's preparation for new growth. The same principle applies to our lives. Sometimes we have to let go of outdated goals, old fears, toxic relationships, constant comparisons, unhealthy routines, not because they're terrible, but because they're preventing something better from growing. Another mistake many people make is believing that balance means giving equal time to everything. It doesn't. Imagine trying to divide your attention equally among 20 different priorities every single day. It's impossible. Some seasons of life naturally demand more attention in one area than another. A new parent won't have the same schedule as a university student. Someone caring for aging parents will live differently from someone just beginning a career. Balance isn't mathematical, it's intentional. It's asking yourself, what deserves my best attention right now? The answer will change throughout life. And that's perfectly okay. The problem begins when temporary priorities become permanent habits. Working extra hours during an important project makes sense. Doing it every week for 10 years doesn't. Skipping exercise because you're recovering from illness is understandable. Ignoring your health for decades isn't. Missing one family gathering due to an emergency happens. Missing every meaningful moment because work always comes first creates regret that no promotion can erase. Life has seasons. Wisdom is knowing which season you're living in. Imagine trying to harvest fruit during winter. No matter how hard you work, the timing is wrong. In the same way, forcing every dream to happen immediately often leads to frustration. Some goals need patience. Some relationships need years to deepen. Some skills need thousands of hours before they become effortless. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. Faster internet, faster deliveries, faster success, faster results. But the most valuable things in life still grow slowly. Trust grows slowly. Wisdom grows slowly. Character grows slowly. Love grows slowly. Confidence grows slowly. You cannot rush these things. Trying to do so only creates the illusion of progress. Think about a massive oak tree. For years, it appears to grow very little above the ground. What nobody sees is the incredible network of roots expanding beneath the surface. Those invisible roots determine how tall the tree can eventually become. Our lives work exactly the same way. The world celebrates visible achievements. Promotions, awards, followers, titles. But those achievements rest upon invisible foundations built long before anyone notices them. Integrity, discipline, kindness, patience, self-control. The strongest people are rarely built during moments of success. They're built during ordinary days when nobody is applauding. When they choose discipline over excuses, learning over comfort, purpose over distraction. Those quiet moments become the roots that support everything else. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. A meaningful life is not created by one extraordinary decision. It is created by thousands of ordinary decisions, each one gently pointing you toward the person you truly want to become. The challenge is that most people never realize they're being pulled off course because the drift happens slowly. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to abandon their values. Nobody consciously chooses a life filled with regret. Instead, it happens through a series of tiny compromises that seem harmless in the moment. One skipped conversation, one postponed dream, one promise to yourself that gets delayed until next week, then next month, then next year. Life rarely changes dramatically overnight. It changes quietly while we're busy paying attention to something else. Imagine a pilot flying an aircraft across an ocean. If the plane is pointed just a few degrees off course, the mistake may seem insignificant at first. For the first few miles, everything appears normal. The passengers don't notice anything unusual. The sky looks the same. The journey feels the same. But hundreds or thousands of miles later, that tiny error leads to a completely different destination. The same thing happens in our lives. Small daily choices may seem insignificant today, but they compound over time. The direction of your life is often determined less by major decisions and more by the habits you repeat without thinking. This is why self-awareness is so important. Many people spend years managing their schedules without ever managing themselves. They know what's on tomorrow's calendar. They know their deadlines. They know their obligations, but they don't know what truly drives them. They've mastered organization while neglecting reflection. And without reflection, even the most organized life can become disconnected from what actually matters. Take a moment and imagine reaching 80 years of age. Imagine sitting quietly, looking back on your life. What memories would make you smile? Would you remember the extra hours spent answering emails on a random Tuesday? Would you treasure the time you spent worrying about other people's opinions? Would you feel grateful for all the stress you carried over problems that eventually solved themselves? Probably not. Most people, when imagining the end of their lives, think about completely different things. They think about people, moments, experiences, acts of courage, acts of kindness, the risks they took, the love they gave, the lives they touched, the legacy they left behind. It's interesting that we already know what matters most. Deep down, most of us already know. The challenge isn't discovering our priorities. The challenge is protecting them. Every day the world competes for our attention. Companies want it. News channels want it. Social media platforms want it. Advertisers want it. Even well-meaning people sometimes demand more of it than we can afford to give. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources on Earth. And because it is valuable, countless forces are fighting to capture it. That's why living intentionally requires more than good intentions. It requires boundaries. A river without banks becomes a flood. A life without boundaries becomes chaos. Many people associate boundaries with selfishness, but healthy boundaries are actually an expression of respect. Respect for your time, respect for your energy, respect for your purpose. When you protect your priorities, you're not rejecting other people. You're protecting what allows you to serve them better in the long run. Consider someone who constantly says yes to every request. At first, they seem generous, helpful, reliable, but eventually exhaustion arrives. Resentment begins to grow. The quality of their work declines. Their relationships suffer, and the very people they wanted to help receive a diminished version of them. Real generosity requires sustainability. You cannot continually pour from an empty cup. That's why taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's responsible. Your physical health affects every part of your life. When your body lacks energy, everything becomes harder. Your patience decreases. Your focus weakens. Your motivation fades. Yet many people treat their health as something they'll prioritize later. After the promotion, after the project, after the busy season, after life finally slows down. But life rarely slows down on its own. If anything, responsibilities tend to increase over time. The same principle applies to learning. Many people stop intentionally learning once formal education ends. Years pass, industries change, technology evolves, the world transforms, but they continue relying on old knowledge. Growth isn't something we complete. It's something we continue. The most successful people remain curious long after they no longer need to prove themselves. They ask questions. They read. They listen. They remain students of life. Not because someone requires it. Because they understand that stagnation is often invisible. You don't notice it day by day. You only notice it when years have passed. The same is true for relationships. Relationships rarely fail because of one argument. They usually weaken through neglect. A lack of attention, a lack of presence, a lack of appreciation. Think about the people who matter most to you. How often do you give them your complete attention? Not while checking notifications, not while multitasking, not while thinking about work, but truly listening, truly being present. Presence has become one of the rarest gifts in modern life. Everyone is connected, yet many people feel profoundly alone. Why? Because connection and presence are not the same thing. 1,000 messages cannot replace one meaningful conversation. 100 likes cannot replace genuine understanding. Technology is powerful, but relationships still grow through attention, trust, and shared experiences. And perhaps the greatest investment you can ever make is investing in people. Money can be lost and earned again. Careers can change. Possessions can disappear. But the impact you have on another person's life can last for generations. Think about the teachers who believed in you, the friends who supported you, the family members who sacrificed for you. Their influence didn't end when the moment passed. It became part of who you are. In the same way, your actions are shaping the lives around you every day, whether you realize it or not. This realization changes the way we think about success. Success is often portrayed as a destination, a title, a bank balance, a milestone. But real success is far more personal. It's alignment. It's knowing that your daily actions reflect your deepest values. It's having achievements you're proud of without sacrificing the people you love. It's building a life that looks good from the inside, not just from the outside. Many people spend years creating an impressive image while neglecting their reality. They chase admiration instead of fulfillment, recognition instead of purpose, appearances instead of substance. Yet appearances require constant maintenance. Substance creates lasting strength. A strong tree doesn't stand because its leaves are beautiful. It stands because its roots are deep. The same principle applies to character. When challenges arrive, and they always do, your character becomes more important than your circumstances. Difficult times reveal what easy times conceal. Anyone can stay positive when everything goes according to plan. Anyone can be patient when nothing tests them. Anyone can act confidently when success feels guaranteed. But adversity exposes the foundation beneath the surface. It reveals whether our values are real or merely convenient. And surprisingly, some of life's most difficult moments become the source of its greatest lessons. Challenges force us to clarify what truly matters. Loss teaches appreciation. Failure teaches humility. Uncertainty teaches faith. Obstacles often develop strengths that comfort never could. Looking back, many people discover that the moments they once wanted to escape became the moments that shaped them most. Not because suffering is desirable, but because growth often emerges from struggle. And when that growth is guided by clear values and meaningful priorities, even difficult experiences can contribute to a life of purpose. Because ultimately, a meaningful life isn't measured by how much we manage to fit into our schedule. It's measured by whether we gave our best attention to the things that mattered most. There's another reason people struggle to focus on what truly matters, and it has nothing to do with intelligence or discipline. It has everything to do with fear. Not the obvious kind of fear that makes your heart race. The quiet kind. The fear of disappointing others. The fear of missing out. The fear of making the wrong decision. The fear of falling behind while everyone else seems to be moving ahead. These fears rarely announce themselves. Instead, they disguise themselves as responsibility. They convince us to say yes when we want to say no. They push us to compare our lives with carefully edited versions of other people's lives. They whisper that if we slow down, we'll lose our chance. But think about it. Has constantly rushing ever made you feel deeply fulfilled? Or has it simply made you exhausted? There is an important difference between living with urgency and living with intention. Urgency says, do everything now. Intention says, do the right thing now. Those two ideas may sound similar, but they lead to completely different lives. Imagine you're standing in a huge library filled with millions of books. You only have enough time in your lifetime to read a tiny fraction of them. Would you randomly grab books from every shelf? Of course not. You would choose carefully because your time is limited. Life works the same way. You cannot experience every opportunity. You cannot accept every invitation. You cannot master every skill. You cannot please every person. Trying to do everything guarantees that you'll never fully experience anything. The most fulfilled people aren't the ones who have done the most. They're the ones who have been fully present in the things they chose to do. This realization is incredibly freeing. Because it means you no longer have to chase every opportunity. You simply need the wisdom to recognize the opportunities that truly belong to you. One of the greatest myths in modern culture is the belief that success is about adding more. More income, more achievements, more possessions, more followers, more recognition. But sometimes the greatest breakthrough comes from subtraction. Removing distractions, removing unhealthy habits, removing unnecessary commitments, removing the constant need for approval. A sculptor doesn't create a masterpiece by adding endless amounts of stone. The masterpiece already exists inside the block. The sculptor simply removes everything that doesn't belong. Perhaps our lives work the same way. Perhaps becoming the person we're meant to be isn't about becoming someone new. Perhaps it's about removing everything that hides who we've always been. Imagine carrying a mirror that's covered with years of dust. The mirror hasn't lost its ability to reflect. It's simply hidden beneath layers of dirt. Your values are like that mirror. They're still there, but stress, comparison, distraction, fear, and endless busyness slowly cover them until it's difficult to recognize yourself. That's why moments of reflection are so powerful. Not because they magically solve your problems, but because they wipe away the dust. They remind you what really matters. Unfortunately, many people treat reflection as a luxury. Something they'll do once life becomes less busy. But reflection isn't a reward after success. It's what prevents us from chasing the wrong success in the first place. Imagine driving for 10 hours without ever checking your map. You might cover hundreds of kilometers. But what if you're heading in the wrong direction? Stopping for 5 minutes to check your route could save hours of wasted travel. Reflection works exactly like that. It may appear unproductive from the outside, but it often saves years of unnecessary effort. That's why successful people don't only ask, what should I do next? They also ask, why am I doing it? Does this still align with who I want to become? Is this taking me toward the life I actually want, or simply the life everyone expects me to live? Those questions require honesty, and honesty isn't always comfortable. Sometimes you'll realize you've been chasing a goal that no longer excites you. Sometimes you'll discover you've been holding onto an identity that sometimes you'll admit that you've been impressing strangers while unintentionally neglecting the people who love you the most. These realizations can feel painful, but they're also incredibly liberating. Because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Another powerful idea is understanding the difference between control and influence. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy worrying about things they cannot control. Economic conditions, other people's opinions, unexpected setbacks, past mistakes, future uncertainty, the weather, politics, traffic, random events. These concerns consume attention without improving anything. Imagine holding a rope tied to a massive ship. No matter how hard you pull, the ship doesn't move. Eventually you're exhausted, not because the work was meaningful, but because it was impossible. That's exactly what happens when we obsess over things outside our control. We drain ourselves trying to move something that refuses to move. Instead, imagine using that same energy to improve your own habits. Learning one new skill, having one meaningful conversation, reading one chapter, helping one person. Suddenly your effort begins producing results. The lesson is simple. Where attention goes, energy follows. And where energy consistently flows, life begins to change. That doesn't mean difficult circumstances disappear. Life will always contain uncertainty. Plans will fail. People will disappoint us. Unexpected problems will appear. No schedule is perfect. No life is completely balanced every single day. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is direction. If a sailor waits for perfect weather before leaving the harbor, the journey may never begin. Instead, experienced sailors expect changing winds. They simply keep adjusting the sails. Life requires the same flexibility. Priorities don't eliminate challenges. They help us respond wisely when challenges arrive. This is where resilience begins. Resilience isn't pretending everything is fine. It's remembering what matters even when life becomes difficult. A person with clear priorities can survive temporary setbacks because they understand the bigger picture. A person without priorities is often overwhelmed by every unexpected obstacle because every problem feels equally important. Think about a lighthouse standing beside a stormy coastline. The waves crash against it. The wind howls. The rain pours endlessly. Yet the lighthouse doesn't chase the storm. It doesn't argue with the wind. It simply continues shining. Its purpose remains unchanged regardless of the weather. Your values can become that lighthouse. Circumstances will change. Your priorities may shift with different seasons of life. But your deepest principles can continue guiding every important decision. When you live that way, something remarkable begins to happen. External success stops controlling your inner peace. You celebrate victories without becoming arrogant. You endure failures without losing hope. You appreciate progress without becoming obsessed with perfection. Because your identity is no longer built on temporary outcomes. It's built on enduring values. And perhaps that's one of the greatest freedoms a human being can experience. Not needing every day to be perfect. Not needing every goal to happen immediately. Not needing everyone to approve of your choices. Simply waking up each morning with the quiet confidence that today, once again, you'll choose what matters most. That confidence cannot be bought. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be borrowed from someone else's success. It is earned. One thoughtful decision at a time, one meaningful conversation at a time, one act of integrity at a time. And over the years, those ordinary moments become an extraordinary life. One that isn't remembered for how busy it was, but for how deeply it was lived. The most meaningful lives are rarely remembered because they were the busiest. They're remembered because they made a difference. Think about the people who have influenced your life the most. Chances are, you don't admire them because they answered emails the fastest or because they worked the longest hours. You remember them because of how they made you feel. Because they listened when no one else did. Because they believed in you before you believed in yourself. Because they showed kindness when it was unexpected. Because they lived according to values instead of convenience. In the end, people rarely remember our schedules. They remember our character. That brings us to one of the most overlooked ideas in personal growth. Leadership. Most people hear the word leader and immediately picture someone standing on a stage, managing a large company, leading a nation, or commanding thousands of employees. But leadership begins long before anyone gives you a title. In fact, the first person you are responsible for leading is yourself. If you cannot manage your own choices, no position or promotion will suddenly make you a better leader. Leadership isn't about control, it's about influence. And influence always begins with example. Imagine a father who constantly tells his children to read books, but they never see him reading. Or imagine a manager who demands honesty from the team while making excuses for every mistake. People don't learn from words alone. They learn from consistency. Our actions quietly teach others what we truly believe. Whether we realize it or not, every day someone is learning from the way we respond to pressure, disappointment, success, and failure. That realization should make us more thoughtful. Because leadership is less about giving instructions and more about becoming the kind of person others naturally trust. Trust is fascinating. It takes years to build. It can disappear in minutes. And once it's broken, rebuilding it requires patience, humility, and consistent effort. Imagine receiving a beautiful crystal vase as a gift. For years, you care for it carefully. Then one careless moment causes it to fall. Even if every broken piece is glued back together, the cracks remain. Trust works much the same way. That's why integrity matters so deeply. Integrity simply means your actions remain consistent with your values, even when no one is watching. It's easy to do the right thing when everyone is paying attention. The real test comes in private moments. Returning extra money after receiving too much change. Admitting a mistake before someone discovers it. Keeping a promise even when breaking it would be easier. These moments often seem small, yet they slowly shape the kind of person you become. And over time, people begin to notice something far more valuable than talent. They notice reliability. In today's world, reliability has become surprisingly rare. Many people make promises they never intend to keep. Deadlines become suggestions. Commitments become optional. Excuses become habits. But imagine becoming known as someone whose word carries weight. Someone who follows through. Someone who arrives prepared. Someone who remains calm under pressure. That reputation becomes more valuable than almost any professional skill. Because skills may open doors, character determines how long those doors remain open. Another quality shared by remarkable people is humility. Humility is often misunderstood. Many people think humility means thinking less of yourself. It doesn't. True humility means thinking about yourself less often. There's a huge difference. A humble person doesn't constantly compare themselves with others. They don't need to prove they're the smartest person in every room. They're willing to learn. They're willing to admit mistakes. They're willing to ask questions. Ironically, that openness allows them to grow faster than those who pretend to know everything. Imagine two young professionals starting the same job. The first spends every day trying to appear intelligent. They're afraid of asking questions because they don't want anyone to think they're inexperienced. The second openly admits what they don't know. They seek advice. They accept feedback. They remain curious. After several years, who do you think develops faster? Usually, it's the person willing to remain a student. Because growth begins where pride ends. Feedback plays an important role in this process. Let's be honest. Most people dislike criticism. It makes us uncomfortable. It challenges our self-image. Our first instinct is often to defend ourselves. But imagine driving a car with a slightly misaligned steering wheel. Without correction, the vehicle slowly drifts farther from its destination. Feedback acts like that small adjustment. It doesn't exist to discourage us. It exists to help us stay on course. The wisest people actively seek feedback because they understand something powerful. Blind spots cannot be seen from within. We all have habits we're unaware of. We all have weaknesses that others notice before we do. The goal isn't to become perfect. The goal is to become more aware. Self-awareness is one of the greatest competitive advantages anyone can develop. When you understand your strengths, you can use them wisely. When you recognize your weaknesses, you stop pretending they don't exist and begin improving them. This creates confidence rooted in reality rather than ego. Confidence built on appearances disappears the moment circumstances change. Confidence built on self-awareness remains steady because it's based on truth. Another remarkable shift happens when you stop asking, "How can I become more successful?" and begin asking, "How can I become more useful?" Success often follows usefulness. The entrepreneur who solves meaningful problems creates value. The teacher who genuinely helps students earns respect. The doctor who truly cares about patients builds trust. The artist who touches people's emotions leaves a lasting impact. In every profession, the people who focus on serving others often achieve success as a natural result. Service changes the way we see work. Instead of asking, "What can I get?" we begin asking, "What can I contribute?" That single shift transforms ordinary jobs into meaningful missions. A cleaner doesn't simply mop floors. They create healthy environments. A software engineer doesn't merely write code. They solve problems that improve people's lives. A farmer doesn't simply grow crops. They feed families. Every honest profession carries dignity when connected to purpose. Purpose has a remarkable ability to make difficult work meaningful. Two people may perform exactly the same task. One feels trapped, the other feels fulfilled. The difference isn't always the work itself. Often, it's the meaning attached to it. When your actions are connected to something larger than yourself, even ordinary responsibilities gain extraordinary significance. And perhaps that's what separates a meaningful life from a merely busy one. Not the number of hours worked, not the amount of money earned, not the titles collected, but the quiet knowledge that, through your choices, your character, and your service, you made the world, even if only for a few people, a little better than you found it. That kind of success doesn't fade with time. It becomes your legacy. There is a simple question that almost nobody asks themselves often enough. If I continue living exactly the way I am today, where will I be 5 years from now? Not where you hope to be, not where you wish to be, but where your current habits are quietly taking you. It's an uncomfortable question because it removes excuses. We all enjoy imagining a better future, a healthier body, a stronger relationship, a successful career, financial freedom, peace of mind, but imagination alone changes nothing. Our future is built by what we repeatedly do, not by what we occasionally dream about. Imagine standing at the bottom of a staircase. Looking at the top floor can feel overwhelming. The distance seems impossible, but nobody climbs a staircase in a single leap. You simply take one step, then another, then another. Eventually, almost without noticing, you've reached a place that once seemed impossible. Life follows the same principle. People often underestimate what small, consistent actions can accomplish over several years. Reading just 20 pages every day may not seem life-changing. Yet over a year, that's thousands of pages and dozens of books. Saving a little money every month may appear insignificant. But over time, those small decisions become financial security. Spending just 30 uninterrupted minutes each day with your family may seem ordinary. Yet those moments slowly build trust, memories, and relationships that last a lifetime. Great lives are rarely built through giant leaps. They're built through countless small steps taken consistently. This is why patience is one of the most underrated strengths in the modern world. Everyone wants immediate results, immediate success, immediate transformation, immediate recognition. But nature doesn't work that way. A seed planted today doesn't become a towering tree tomorrow. First, it grows roots. Then a small shoot appears. For a long time, progress is almost invisible. Yet beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. The same is true for every meaningful goal. There are seasons when it feels as though nothing is changing. You're exercising, yet the mirror barely changes. You're studying, yet mastery still feels far away. You're building a business, yet success seems distant. You're trying to rebuild a relationship, yet trust returns slowly. Those are the moments when many people quit. Not because they lack potential, but because they confuse invisible progress with no progress. Growth often happens silently before it becomes visible. Think about learning a new language. At first, every word feels unfamiliar. Every sentence feels confusing. Weeks pass, and you wonder if you're improving at all. Then one day, you suddenly realize you're understanding conversations that once sounded impossible. The progress didn't happen overnight. It accumulated quietly until it finally became noticeable. The same principle applies to confidence. People often admire confident individuals without seeing the years of uncertainty that came before. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's built through keeping promises to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your trust in yourself. Every completed workout, every chapter finished, every difficult conversation you chose not to avoid, every commitment you honored, each one sends the same message to your mind. I can rely on myself. That is the foundation of genuine confidence. Not arrogance, not pretending, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need applause. One of the greatest obstacles to this kind of growth is comparison. Comparison steals joy because it changes your focus. Instead of measuring your progress against who you were yesterday, You begin measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. You compare your beginning to another person's middle, your struggles to someone else's victories, your behind-the-scenes reality to their carefully presented image. It's an unfair comparison. Imagine running a marathon while constantly looking sideways at every other runner. What would happen? You'd lose rhythm. You'd waste energy. You might even trip. The finish line doesn't move because someone else is running faster. Your race remains your race. Life works exactly the same way. Someone else's success does not reduce your potential. Someone else's achievement does not delay your opportunity. The world is not as limited as fear makes it seem. There is room for many people to succeed. The healthiest competition you'll ever have is with the person you were yesterday. Ask yourself every evening, what did I learn today? How did I improve today? Whose life became better because I was in it today? Those questions create lasting growth. Notice that none of them ask about popularity. None of them ask about comparison. None of them ask whether you impressed strangers. Because the deepest satisfaction rarely comes from external approval. It comes from internal alignment. From knowing that your actions reflected your values. That doesn't mean life becomes easy. Far from it. There will still be disappointments, unexpected losses, dreams that take longer than expected, moments when you question yourself, days when motivation disappears. That's perfectly normal. Motivation was never meant to carry your entire life. Systems do that. Habits do that. Values do that. Imagine two people training for a marathon. One only runs when they feel inspired. The other runs according to a schedule, regardless of mood. Months later, who reaches the finish line? Usually, it's not the one with greater motivation. It's the one with greater consistency. Feelings change. Commitment remains. That's why meaningful priorities become so powerful. They continue guiding your decisions long after excitement fades. Anyone can begin. The challenge is continuing when the novelty disappears. This is where discipline reveals its true purpose. Discipline is often viewed as punishment, as forcing yourself to do things you dislike. But real discipline is an act of self-respect. It's choosing what matters most over what feels easiest. It's keeping a promise your present self made to your future self. And every time you choose discipline over temporary comfort, you're sending a message to your future. I'm building a life you'll be grateful for. Imagine meeting your future self 10 years from today. What would that person thank you for? Would they thank you for spending countless evenings lost in distractions? Or would they thank you for reading one more chapter? Learning one more skill, taking better care of your health, being present with the people you love, having the courage to start before you felt ready. Every decision you make today is a gift, or a burden, to the person you'll become tomorrow. That's why every ordinary day matters far more than we realize. Most of life isn't lived during extraordinary moments. It's lived on ordinary Mondays, quiet Tuesday mornings, rainy Wednesday evenings, normal weekends. The quality of those ordinary days quietly determines the quality of an extraordinary life. Perhaps that's why truly fulfilled people don't wait for special occasions to be grateful. They don't postpone happiness until the next promotion, the next purchase, or the next milestone. They learn to appreciate the life they're building while they're still building it. Because they understand something many people discover too late. Life isn't waiting for you somewhere in the future. Life is happening now, right now. In this conversation, in the choices you'll make after this video ends, in the people you'll speak to today, in the promises you'll either keep or postpone. Every moment offers another opportunity to choose what truly matters. And every one of those choices, no matter how small, is quietly shaping the story your life will eventually tell. Every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, is writing a story. The question is, who is holding the pen? For many people, the answer is disappointing. Their schedule holds the pen. Other people's expectations hold the pen. Their fears hold the pen. Their past mistakes hold the pen. They move from one day to the next, reacting instead of choosing, surviving instead of living, hoping that someday everything will finally fall into place. But someday is a dangerous word. It sounds hopeful, yet for countless people, it quietly turns into never. I'll spend more time with my family someday. I'll start taking care of my health someday. I'll write that book someday. I'll travel someday. I'll apologize someday. I'll finally pursue the life I want, someday. The problem is that life doesn't wait for someday. It only gives us today. Every tomorrow eventually arrives disguised as another ordinary morning. And if we keep postponing what matters most, one day we'll realize we postponed our entire life. Imagine owning a beautiful musical instrument. You spend years polishing it, protecting it, showing it to others, but you never actually play it. Wouldn't that be tragic? Its purpose was never to sit on a shelf. It was meant to create music. Our abilities are no different. Your talents were never meant to remain hidden because of fear. Your kindness wasn't meant to stay inside your thoughts. Your dreams weren't meant to become lifelong what-ifs. Life asks us to participate, not merely prepare. Preparation is important. Planning matters. Learning matters. But eventually there comes a moment when preparation must become action. Many people remain trapped because they're waiting to feel completely ready. The perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect amount of confidence, the perfect plan. But perfection has a strange habit. It never arrives. Imagine an artist standing before a blank canvas. Every day they study painting techniques. They buy better brushes, watch more tutorials, read more books, organize their studio. Yet they never make the first brushstroke because they're afraid it won't be perfect. Years pass. The canvas remains blank. Now imagine another artist. Their first painting is awkward. Their second isn't much better. The 10th still has flaws. But by the 100th painting, something extraordinary has happened. They've become an artist, not because they waited, because they began. Action creates clarity. Waiting often creates fear. This doesn't mean acting recklessly. It means accepting that progress usually comes after beginning, not before. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. No amount of reading can replace actually riding. Balance is learned through movement. The same is true for confidence. Confidence grows through action. Every meaningful achievement in history began with someone taking an imperfect first step. Another important truth is that priorities are revealed not by what we say, but by what we repeatedly choose. It's easy to say family is important. It's harder to consistently create time for them. It's easy to say health matters. It's harder to exercise when you're tired. It's easy to say lifelong learning is valuable. It's harder to open a book after a long day. Values become real only when they appear in our calendar, our habits, and our decisions. Otherwise, they're simply good intentions. Imagine receiving 86,400 rupees every morning. There's only one rule. Whatever remains at midnight disappears forever. No saving. No carrying it forward. No second chance. How carefully would you spend it? Now realize something remarkable. Every day you're given approximately 86,400 seconds. Exactly the same rule applies. Unused time vanishes forever. The question isn't whether you're spending it. You already are. The real question is, what are you spending it on? Some seconds become unforgettable memories. Some become knowledge. Some become stronger relationships. Some become regret. The choice is rarely made in dramatic moments. It's made in ordinary ones. That's why awareness is so powerful. When you're aware of where your time is going, you begin reclaiming control over your life. Without awareness, weeks disappear. Months disappear. Years disappear. And then people wonder where their life went. But life didn't disappear. It was exchanged. Minute by minute. Choice by choice. Conversation by conversation. Habit by habit. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is asking yourself a simple question before saying yes to anything. Does this move me toward the life I want to build? Not every opportunity deserves your attention. Not every request deserves your energy. Not every distraction deserves your curiosity. The ability to say no respectfully is one of the greatest expressions of maturity. Because every thoughtful no protects a more meaningful yes. A yes to your health. A yes to your family. A yes to your growth. A yes to your peace of mind. Interestingly, the happiest people aren't necessarily those with the easiest lives. They're often the people whose daily actions align with their deepest values. Their circumstances may still be difficult. They experience setbacks like everyone else. But they wake up knowing why they're doing what they're doing. Purpose gives ordinary effort extraordinary meaning. A bricklayer may believe he's stacking bricks all day. Another bricklayer believes he's building a school where children will learn for generations. The work appears identical. The meaning is completely different. Purpose changes experience. This is why gratitude becomes such a powerful companion to meaningful priorities. Gratitude shifts attention from what's missing to what's already present. Instead of constantly chasing the next achievement, grateful people recognize the quiet blessings that already surround them. The opportunity to learn, the opportunity to love, the opportunity to improve, the opportunity to serve. Gratitude doesn't eliminate ambition, it simply prevents ambition from becoming endless dissatisfaction. You can strive for more while still appreciating what you already have. Those two ideas are not opposites. They strengthen one another. And perhaps the greatest reward of living this way isn't greater productivity. It isn't greater wealth. It isn't greater recognition. It's peace. The quiet confidence that when you lay your head on the pillow each night, you know your day wasn't merely busy. It was meaningful, not perfect, meaningful, because perfection has never been the goal. A life filled with purpose, integrity, kindness, growth, and love, that is a goal worthy of every ordinary day we're fortunate enough to receive. And when enough ordinary days are lived with extraordinary intention, they become an extraordinary life. And that brings us to perhaps the most important question of all. What kind of life do you want people to remember when they remember you? Not what car you drove. Not how many followers you had. Not the size of your house. Not even how successful your career looked from the outside. But how you made people feel. The values you stood for. The promises you kept. The courage you showed when life became difficult. The kindness you offered when no one expected it. At the end of our lives, very few people wish they had spent more time worrying. Very few wish they had attended one more unnecessary meeting. Very few regret not owning one more expensive possession. Instead, people remember moments. A conversation that changed someone's life. A quiet evening with family. A friend's laughter. A lesson learned through failure. A dream that finally became reality because they chose courage over comfort. Life is made of moments. And moments are created by priorities. That's why the greatest investment you can ever make is not in your bank account. It's in your character. Because character travels with you everywhere. It influences every relationship, every decision, every opportunity, every challenge. Character quietly shapes the quality of your entire life. Think of your life as a garden. Every day, you're planting something. Sometimes you're planting patience, sometimes discipline, sometimes generosity, sometimes resentment, sometimes fear, sometimes courage. The interesting thing about a garden is that it doesn't care what you intended to plant. It only grows what you consistently sow. If you plant distraction every day, you'll eventually harvest regret. If you plant learning every day, you'll eventually harvest wisdom. If you plant kindness every day, you'll eventually harvest trust. If you plant discipline every day, you'll eventually harvest freedom. The harvest is simply the result of repeated choices. And that's encouraging, because it means your future is not determined by yesterday. It's influenced by what you begin doing today. No matter where you are in life. Whether you're a student trying to build your future, a professional searching for balance, an entrepreneur chasing a dream, a parent raising a family, or someone simply trying to become a better version of yourself, the same principle applies. You don't need to transform your entire life overnight. You simply need to protect what matters most. One decision at a time. One conversation at a time. One habit at a time. Imagine looking back at your life many years from now. You won't remember every deadline. You won't remember every busy afternoon. You won't remember every stressful week. But you'll remember the moments when you were fully alive. The day you finally believed in yourself. The day you forgave someone. The day you chose integrity instead of convenience. The day you decided to spend more time with someone you loved. The day you stopped chasing everyone else's definition of success and started living according to your own values. Those are the moments that quietly become the turning points of a meaningful life. There is a beautiful truth hidden inside every ordinary day. Every sunrise offers a fresh opportunity. Not to become someone completely different, but to become a little more like the person you truly want to be. Every morning you receive another chance to choose patience over anger, learning over distraction, health over excuses, presence over busyness, purpose over Those choices may feel small. But remember, the tallest buildings stand because thousands of individual bricks were placed with care. The strongest bridges exist because every single piece supports another. The greatest books are written one sentence at a time. And extraordinary lives are built exactly the same way. One meaningful choice after another. You don't have to control the entire future. You only need to choose wisely today. Because today's choices become tomorrow's habits. Tomorrow's habits become next year's lifestyle. And your lifestyle eventually becomes your legacy. If there is one message to carry with you after listening to this entire conversation, let it be this. Don't spend your life becoming incredibly efficient at things that don't truly matter. Instead, slow down just enough to ask yourself the questions that most people avoid. What matters most to me? Who needs my attention today? What kind of person am I becoming through my daily choices? And if my life continues in this direction, will I be proud of where it leads? Those questions don't require immediate answers. But they deserve honest ones. Because the quality of your answers will shape the quality of your life. The world will always encourage you to move faster, to chase more, to compare more, to consume more. But lasting fulfillment comes from a different path. It comes from living with intention, choosing with wisdom, serving with kindness, growing with humility, and placing first things first. If today's discussion gave you a new perspective on your time, your priorities, or your future, then don't let it end here. Take just one idea from today's video and apply it before the day is over. Real transformation never begins with massive change. It begins with one meaningful action repeated consistently. And if you enjoyed this journey, make sure to subscribe to Volume and Vision for more timeless books, powerful ideas, and practical wisdom that can help you build a life of purpose, clarity, and lasting fulfillment. If this video inspired you, share it with someone who has been feeling overwhelmed or stuck. Sometimes, a single conversation arrives at exactly the right moment and changes the direction of a person's life. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. Until next time, remember this. Your life is not defined by how busy you are. It is defined by what you choose to make important. Choose wisely, live intentionally, and let every day become a step toward the life you truly want. See you in the next video.